Buck Morrison pulled his black Cadillac into the parking lot at Denver Union Station. The October wind was cold and sharp. He buttoned his leather coat and pulled his cowboy hat down tight. Buck was 34 years old and owned the biggest cattle ranch in Colorado. People called him a millionaire cowboy. He had worked hard for everything he owned. Today, Buck was picking up 3 prize bulls from Texas. These bulls cost him $50,000. That was a lot of money in 1952. But Buck knew good cattle when he saw them. These bulls would make his herd even better. The train station was busy and loud. People hurried past with heavy bags. Steam came from the trains like white clouds. Buck checked his pocket watch. The train from Texas would arrive in 20 minutes. Buck walked to platform 3. He liked to be early for important things. As he waited, he looked around at all the people. Families said goodbye. Soldiers in uniform carried big bags. Businessmen in suits read newspapers. Then Buck saw her. A young woman sat alone on a wooden bench. She wore a white nurse uniform under a heavy gray coat. Her hands shook as she held a yellow piece of paper. Even with her warm coat, she was shivering. But Buck could tell it was not just from the cold. The woman had brown hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her face was pale and thin. Dark circles under her eyes made her look very tired. She stared at nothing, like her mind was far away. Buck had seen that look before. It was the look of someone who had seen too much pain. Buck was not the kind of man who talked to strangers. He kept to himself most of the time. On his ranch, he was the boss. In town, people knew him but kept their distance. Rich men like Buck did not mix with regular folks. But something about this woman made him feel different. The woman's hands shook harder. The yellow paper fluttered in the wind. Buck could see it was a telegram. Bad news usually came in telegrams. He had gotten one when his parents died in a house fire 10 years ago. Buck walked slowly toward the bench. He did not want to scare her. When he got close, he could see tears on her cheeks. She was trying hard not to cry. "Excuse me, miss," Buck said in a gentle voice. "Are you all right?" The woman looked up. Her eyes were green like spring grass. But they looked empty and sad. She wiped her tears quickly. "I am fine, thank you," she said. Her voice was soft but strong. Buck could tell she was used to taking care of other people, not herself. "You look cold," Buck said. "The wind is pretty harsh today." The woman tried to smile. "Yes, it is quite cold." Buck could see she was being polite, but her whole body was shaking now. He took off his thick scarf and held it out to her. "Please take this," he said. "You need it more than I do." The woman stared at the scarf. "I could not take that from a stranger." "My name is James Morrison," Buck said. "But everyone calls me Buck. I own a ranch about 2 hours from here. Now we are not strangers." The woman looked at Buck for a long moment. She seemed to be deciding if she could trust him. Finally, she took the scarf. "Thank you, Mr. Morrison," she said. "My name is Eleanor Patterson. People call me Ellie." "Nice to meet you, Miss Patterson," Buck said. "Do you mind if I sit down? I am waiting for a train, too." Ellie moved over to make room. Buck sat on the other end of the bench. He gave her space but stayed close enough to help if she needed it. "Are you traveling far?" Buck asked. Ellie looked at the telegram in her hands. Her lips started to shake again. "I am going to Cedar Creek," she said. "It is a small town in the mountains. I am supposed to work at a clinic there." Buck knew Cedar Creek. It was a tiny place with maybe 200 people. Most folks there were miners or loggers. It was not an easy place to live, especially for a young woman alone. "That is rough country," Buck said carefully. "Have you been there before?" Ellie shook her head. "No. I am coming from Korea. I was a nurse at a military hospital there." Buck felt his chest tighten. Korea was a bad place right now. American soldiers were fighting and dying there. The nurses who worked in those hospitals saw terrible things every day. "That must have been hard work," Buck said. Ellie's eyes filled, with tears again. She looked down at the telegram. I got this message yesterday, she said in a whisper. My fiancé, David, was killed 3 weeks ago. He was a medic. We were supposed to get married when I came home. Buck felt like someone had punched him in the stomach. This poor woman had lost the man she loved. No wonder she looked so broken. I am very sorry, Buck said. I cannot imagine how much that hurts. Ellie started to cry. She tried to stop, but the tears kept coming. Buck wanted to comfort her, but he did not know how. He was not good with emotions. I do not know what I'm going to do, Ellie said between sobs. David and I had plans. We were going to work together, help people. Now he is gone, and I am all alone. Buck pulled out his clean handkerchief and gave it to her. Ellie took it and wiped her eyes. Thank you, she said. I am sorry for crying. I do not usually fall apart like this. You have every right to cry, Buck said. You have been through something terrible. Just then, a train whistle blew. Buck looked up and saw his train coming down the tracks. Black smoke poured from the engine. The ground shook as the big train got closer. That is my train, Buck said. But I do not feel right leaving you here alone. Ellie tried to smile. I will be fine. My train comes in an hour. Buck stood up but did not walk away. Something told him this woman needed help. She looked lost and scared. Buck had been lost once too, after his parents died. He knew how it felt to be alone in the world. Miss Patterson, Buck said. I know we just met, but I have a feeling you could use a friend right now. Cedar Creek is on my way home. Would you like a ride instead of taking the train? Ellie looked surprised. I could not ask you to do that. You are not asking, Buck said. I am offering. My truck is warm, and the drive is pretty. It might be better than sitting on a cold train for 3 hours. Ellie thought for a moment. She looked at Buck's kind eyes and honest face. Something told her she could trust this cowboy. All right, she said. Thank you, Mr. Morrison, that is very kind. Buck smiled for the first time all day. Call me Buck, and it is my pleasure. As they walked to his truck, Buck had no idea that this moment would change both their lives forever. Sometimes the most important meetings happen when you least expect them. Buck loaded Ellie's small suitcase into the back of his pickup truck. She did not have much with her, just one bag and a small medical kit. Buck thought it was strange for someone to travel so far with so little, but he did not ask questions. The truck was warm inside. Buck had good heaters put in because Colorado winters were harsh. Ellie sat quietly as they drove through Denver. She kept the telegram folded in her hands. Tell me about your ranch, Ellie said after a while. She seemed to want something to take her mind off her sadness. It is called the Double M Ranch, Buck said. I have about 5,000 acres and 300 head of cattle. Been building it up for 12 years now. That sounds like a lot of work, Ellie said. It is, Buck agreed. But I love it. There is something peaceful about working with animals and land. Makes a man feel connected to something bigger than himself. As they drove into the mountains, the road got narrow and winding. Snow covered the peaks even though it was only October. Buck drove carefully. He had made this trip many times, but he had precious cargo today. How did you become a nurse? Buck asked. Ellie was quiet for a long time. Buck thought maybe she did not want to talk about it. Then she started speaking in a soft voice. My mother was sick when I was young, she said. Cancer. I watched the nurses take care of her. They were so gentle and kind. They made her last days easier. I wanted to help people like that. That is a noble calling, Buck said. I thought so too, Ellie said. Her voice got sadder. I went to nursing school in Chicago. Met David there, he wanted to be a doctor. We both believed we could make the world better. Buck could hear the pain in her voice. He kept driving, letting her talk at her own pace. When the war started in Korea, we both volunteered, Ellie continued. We thought we were doing the right thing. American boys were getting hurt and they needed medical help. Ellie's hands started shaking again. She stared out the window at the mountains. Nothing could have prepared us for what we saw there. she whispered. Buck felt a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. He had heard stories from other men who fought in wars. They never liked to talk about it much. The wounded soldiers came in day and night, Ellie said. Boys who were 18 or 19 years old. Some missing arms or legs, others with wounds so bad. She stopped talking and took a deep breath. You do not have to tell me this, Buck said gently. I think I need to tell someone, Ellie said. I have been carrying it inside me for so long. Buck nodded and kept driving. Sometimes people needed to let their pain out, like letting steam out of a boiling pot. David and I worked 18 hours a day, Ellie continued. We barely slept. The hospital was just a bunch of tents. When it rained, water came through the roof onto the patients. In winter, it was so cold we could see our breath inside. Ellie's voice started to shake. We lost so many boys. I would work all day trying to save someone, and then they would die anyway. David used to hold me when I cried. He said we were making a difference, even if we could not save them all. Buck turned onto a mountain road. The trees were thick here, and the afternoon sun made long shadows across the road. What happened to David? Buck asked carefully. Ellie started crying again, but this time she kept talking through her tears. There was an attack on our hospital, she said. Enemy soldiers came in the night. David was working late in the surgery tent. He stayed behind to help move the patients who could not walk. Buck's hands tightened on the steering wheel. A bomb went off, Ellie said. The surgery tent was destroyed. David and 6 patients died instantly. I was in another tent when it happened. I heard the explosion and ran outside. Ellie was sobbing now. Buck pulled the truck over to the side of the road and stopped. He turned to face her. I found pieces of the tent scattered everywhere, Ellie said. There was blood and parts of people. I could not tell who was who. I looked for David, but Buck reached over and put his hand on her shoulder. You do not have to say any more. I have nightmares every night, Ellie said. I see the explosion over and over. I hear the screams. Sometimes I wake up thinking I'm still there. I can smell the smoke and blood. Buck had never heard anything so terrible. This poor woman had been through hell. No wonder she looked so broken. That is why I am shaking all the time, Ellie said. The doctors said it is shell shock. They said it would go away with time. But it has been 6 months, and I still cannot sleep. I cannot eat much. Loud noises make me jump. Buck understood now why Ellie had looked so scared at the train station. The noise and crowds must have reminded her of the war. The worst part is the guilt, Ellie said. I lived and David died. All those boys died and I could not save them. What kind of nurse am I if I cannot save people? You are not responsible for what happened, Buck said firmly. You did everything you could. War is not fair. Good people die, and it is not anyone's fault. I know that in my head, Ellie said, but my heart does not believe it. Buck started the truck again and pulled back onto the road. They drove in silence for a while. The sun was getting lower in the sky and the mountains looked purple in the distance. Why are you going to Cedar Creek? Buck asked. The clinic there needs a nurse, Ellie said. It is a small job in a quiet place. I thought maybe if I got away from big cities and hospitals I could heal. The doctor who hired me said it would be peaceful work, just taking care of miners and their families. Buck frowned. Who hired you? Dr. Wilson, Ellie said. He sent me a letter saying they needed help right away. Buck knew most of the doctors in that part of Colorado. He had never heard of a Dr. Wilson in Cedar Creek, but maybe it was someone new. Have you ever been to a small mountain town before? Buck asked. No, Ellie admitted. I grew up in Chicago and worked in big hospitals, but I thought a change might be good for me. Buck was starting to worry. Cedar Creek was a rough place. The men who worked in the mines were tough and could be mean to outsiders. It was no place for a fragile woman recovering from trauma. What if the job does not work out? Buck asked. Ellie looked down at her hands. I do not have anywhere else to go. I spent all my savings getting home from Korea. This job is all I have. Buck felt a stab of sympathy. This woman was completely alone in the world. She had lost her fiancé, her home, and her sense of purpose. Now she was putting all her hope in a job that might not even exist. As they drove higher into the mountains, the air got colder. Snow started falling in small flakes. Buck turned on the heater and adjusted the windshield wipers. "Buck," Ellie said quietly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you offer to drive me? You do not know me, I could be anyone." Buck thought about the question. "I guess I recognized something in you," he said. "I lost my parents when I was 24, house fire. I was away at a cattle auction and I came home to find everything gone." "I am so sorry," Ellie said. "For a long time after that I felt lost," Buck continued. "I had the ranch, but it felt empty. I worked all the time because I did not know what else to do. People tried to help, but I pushed them away." "What changed?" Ellie asked. "Time, mostly," Buck said. "And work. Building something with my hands helped me heal, but I still remember what it felt like to be completely alone." Ellie nodded. "That is exactly how I feel now. That is why I wanted to help you," Buck said. "Nobody should have to go through that kind of pain alone." The snow was falling harder now. Buck slowed down and turned on his headlights. They would reach Cedar Creek in another hour. But Buck was dreading what they might find there. The snow was falling thick when Buck and Ellie reached Cedar Creek. The small town looked like something from a ghost story. Most of the buildings were old and falling down. Only a few lights shone in windows. The streets were empty except for one old dog that ran across the road. Buck drove slowly through the main street. There were only about 10 buildings total: a general store, a bar, a small church, and a few houses. Everything looked gray and sad in the winter light. "Where is the clinic supposed to be?" Buck asked. Ellie looked at the letter in her hands. "It should be on Main Street next to the general store." Buck stopped the truck in front of a small building with a faded sign that said, "Cedar Creek Medical Clinic." But something was wrong. The windows were boarded up with old wood. Weeds grew around the front door. No lights were on inside. "This does not look right," Buck said. Ellie got out of the truck and walked to the front door. Buck followed her. There was a piece of paper nailed to the door. Ellie read it out loud. "Clinic closed permanently. Dr. Henderson moved to Denver. No medical services available." Ellie stared at the sign. Her face went white. "But Dr. Wilson wrote to me. He said they needed a nurse right away." Buck looked around. "Let me ask at the general store. Maybe someone knows about this Dr. Wilson." They walked to the store next door. A bell rang when they opened the door. An old man with a gray beard looked up from behind the counter. "Can I help you folks?" he asked. "We are looking for Dr. Wilson," Buck said. "This lady was hired to work at the clinic." The old man shook his head. "Ain't been no doctor in this town for 6 months. Old Doc Henderson left when the mine shut down. Most folks moved away. We only got about 50 people left now." Ellie felt like the ground was falling away under her feet. "But I got a letter," she said weakly. "Let me see it," the old man said. Ellie showed him the letter. The man looked at it and frowned. "This is strange," he said. "The address is wrong, and we never had no Dr. Wilson here. Someone played a mean trick on you, miss." Buck felt angry. Someone had lied to Ellie and brought her all this way for nothing. She had spent her last money to get here. "Is there anywhere she can stay tonight?" Buck asked. "The old hotel is closed," the man said, "but Mrs. Murphy might rent you a room. She lives in the yellow house at the end of the street." Buck thanked the man and they walked back to the truck. Ellie sat in the passenger seat and stared straight ahead. She did not cry this time. She looked empty, like all her emotions were used up. "What am I going to do?" she whispered. Buck started the truck but did not drive anywhere. He sat thinking. This woman had nowhere to go and no money. Winter was coming, and Cedar Creek was dying. She would not last a week here alone. "Come with me," Buck said suddenly. "What?" Ellie looked at him in surprise. "Come to my ranch," Buck said. "I need a nurse." You do not need a nurse, Ellie said. You are just being kind. Actually, I do need one, Buck said. I have 20 cowboys working for me. They get hurt. All the time. Broken bones, cuts, horse kicks. The nearest doctor is 60 miles away. In winter, we cannot always get to town when someone gets hurt bad. Ellie shook her head. I cannot take charity. It is not charity, Buck said firmly. It is a job. I will pay you good wages and give you a place to live. You will earn every penny. But you do not know if I can still do the work, Ellie said. What if my nightmares make me useless? What if I freeze up when someone needs help? Buck looked at her seriously. Do you want to help people? More than anything, Ellie said. Then you will find a way to do it, Buck said. I have been watching you today. You are stronger than you think. Ellie was quiet for a long time. Snow piled up on the windshield. Finally, she spoke. What would I have to do? Take care of injuries and sickness, Buck said. Keep medical supplies stocked. Maybe help the families in the area when they need a nurse. I will fix up one of the old bunkhouses for you to live in. You will have your own space and privacy. Where is your ranch? Ellie asked. About an hour from here, down in a valley. It is peaceful and quiet. No crowds, no loud noises. Just cattle, horses, and good men who work hard. Ellie thought about her options. She could try to find work in another city, but she had no money for travel. She could stay in Cedar Creek, but there was nothing here for her. Or she could trust this kind cowboy who had already helped her more than anyone else. Why would you do this for me? Ellie asked. Buck was honest with her. Because you need help and I can give it, and because I think you might be exactly what my ranch needs too. I do not understand. I have been running that ranch alone for 12 years, Buck said. I work all the time. My men respect me, but they do not get close to me. I do not have friends or family. Maybe it is time I let someone else help carry the load. Ellie looked at Buck's face in the dim light. She saw kindness there, and loneliness too. Maybe they could help each other. What would people say? Ellie asked. A single woman living on a ranch with all those men? My men are good people, Buck said. They would respect you and protect you, and I do not care what other people say. I learned a long time ago that most folks talk about things they do not understand. Ellie made her decision. All right. I will try it, but if it does not work out, you have to promise to help me find something else. I promise, Buck said. They drove away from Cedar Creek as the snow fell harder. Ellie watched the sad little town disappear in the mirror. She had come here hoping for a new start, but she was getting something even better. She was getting a chance to rebuild her life with someone who understood what it meant to be alone. The road to Buck's ranch was narrow and winding. They drove through thick forests and across small bridges. As they went deeper into the valley, Ellie could see why Buck loved this place. It was beautiful and wild, far from the noise and pain of the world. There it is, Buck said as they came over a hill. Ellie looked down into the valley and gasped. The Double M Ranch spread out below them like something from a picture book. A big house sat in the center with barns and corrals around it. Cattle moved slowly across the fields. Smoke came from the chimneys of several smaller buildings. It is beautiful, Ellie said. It is home, Buck said simply. As they drove down the hill toward the ranch house, Ellie felt something she had not felt in months. Hope. Maybe this place could be a new beginning for her. Maybe she could learn to live without fear again. Buck parked the truck in front of the main house. Several cowboys came out to see who was arriving. They touched their hats politely when they saw Ellie. Boys, this is Miss Patterson, Buck said. She is our new nurse. I want you to treat her with respect and help her get settled. A tall cowboy with gray hair stepped forward. Welcome to the Double M, miss. I am Tom Bradley, the foreman. If you need anything, just let me know. Thank you, Mr. Bradley, Ellie said. Buck led her to a small building behind the main house. This will be your place, he said, opening the door. The bunkhouse was simple but clean. It had one room with a bed, a desk, and a small kitchen area. A fireplace took up one wall. Windows looked out over the valley. I will have the boys bring wood for the fire, Buck said. And tomorrow we can talk about setting up a proper medical room. Ellie set down her suitcase and looked around. For the first time in months, she felt safe. Thank you, Buck, she said. I do not know how to repay your kindness. Just get well, Buck said. That will be payment enough. That night, Ellie sat by her fire and watched the snow fall outside her window. She could hear cattle lowing softly in the distance. For the first time since David died, she slept through the night without nightmares. Winter came early to the Double M Ranch that year. By November, snow covered the ground 3 feet deep. The mountains around the valley looked like white giants watching over the ranch. Ellie had been there for 6 weeks, and slowly, she was starting to heal. Her first patient was a cowboy named Pete who got kicked by a horse. His leg was broken in 2 places. In Korea, Ellie would have sent him to a surgeon, but here she had to do everything herself. This is going to hurt, she told Pete as she set his leg. Do what you need to do, miss, Pete said through gritted teeth. Ellie's hands shook as she worked. She kept thinking about all the soldiers she could not save. But Pete was not a soldier, and this was not Korea. She took a deep breath and focused on helping him. When she finished, Pete's leg was straight and secure. Thank you, Miss Patterson, he said. You did good work. That was the first time since David died that Ellie felt proud of her nursing skills. Buck helped her set up a real medical room in one of the barns. They cleaned it from top to bottom and painted the walls white. Buck bought medical supplies from Denver. Soon, Ellie had everything she needed to take care of injuries and sickness. The cowboys started coming to her with all kinds of problems. Cut hands, sore backs, bad colds, some just wanted someone to talk to. Ellie listened to their stories and helped however she could. One night in December, Tom Bradley knocked on her door. His face was pale with worry. Miss Patterson, we need your help, he said. My son Jimmy is real sick, high fever and trouble breathing. My wife is scared he might die. Ellie grabbed her medical bag and followed Tom to his house near the main ranch. Jimmy was 8 years old and burning up with fever. His mother, Sarah, sat beside his bed crying. How long has he been like this? Ellie asked. 3 days, Sarah said. It started as a cold, but it keeps getting worse. Ellie examined Jimmy carefully. His breathing was shallow and fast. She could hear rattling in his chest. It was pneumonia, a serious lung infection. We need to cool him down and help him breathe, Ellie said. She worked through the night, giving Jimmy medicine and keeping wet cloths on his forehead. Buck came to check on them around midnight. He found Ellie still at Jimmy's bedside. You should get some rest, Buck said quietly. I cannot. Leave him, Ellie said. If his fever gets any higher, he could have seizures. Buck sat down in a chair beside her. Tell me what to do. I will help. Together, they took care of Jimmy through the long night. Buck held the boy while Ellie gave him medicine. When Jimmy cried for his mother, Buck told him stories about brave cowboys and wild horses. By morning, Jimmy's fever had broken. He was breathing easier and asking for water. Sarah cried with relief and hugged Ellie tight. You saved my boy, she said. I will never forget this. Word spread quickly about how Ellie had saved Jimmy Bradley. Soon, families from other ranches started bringing their sick children to her. Ellie realized she was becoming the doctor for the whole valley. During the long winter evenings, Buck and Ellie spent time together by the fire in the main house. Buck taught her to play chess. Ellie taught him about books and poetry. They talked about their dreams and fears. I never thought I would feel peaceful again, Ellie told him one snowy night. But this place is healing me. You are healing all of us too, Buck said. The men respect you, the families trust you. You have given us something we did not know we needed. Ellie looked at Buck across the chessboard. He was a good man, she realized. Strong and kind and honest. She had not felt attracted to anyone since David died. But something about Buck made her heart beat faster. Buck was feeling the same way about Ellie. He loved watching her work with gentle hands and a caring heart. She was bringing life back to his lonely ranch. But he was afraid to tell her how he felt. She was still healing from losing David. One night in January, a terrible blizzard hit the valley. The wind howled like a wild animal. Snow piled up against the windows. The ranch hands could barely get from the bunkhouse to the barns to feed the animals. Around midnight, someone pounded on Ellie's door. She opened it to find Buck covered in snow. "We have an emergency," he said. "One of the cattle broke through the ice on the pond. Joe went in after her and got trapped under the ice. The men pulled him out, but he is not breathing." Ellie grabbed her medical bag and ran through the snow to the main barn. Joe was lying on the floor, blue and still. The other cowboys stood around looking helpless. "Get me blankets and build up that fire," Ellie ordered. She knelt beside Joe and started pushing on his chest. She had learned this technique in Korea for soldiers who nearly drowned. For 10 minutes, Ellie worked on Joe. Push on the chest, breathe into his mouth, push again. The cowboys watched in silence. Buck held a lantern so she could see. Finally, Joe coughed and spit up water. His eyes opened and he tried to sit up. "Easy," Ellie said. "You almost drowned. Just breathe slowly." Joe looked up at her with grateful eyes. "You brought me back from the dead," he whispered. That night, as Ellie walked back to her cabin through the snow, Buck caught up with her. "That was amazing," he said. "Where did you learn to do that?" "In Korea," Ellie said. "Sometimes soldiers would nearly drown crossing rivers. We had to learn how to restart their hearts." Buck stopped walking and looked at her. "All this time, you have been thinking the war made you weak, but it made you strong. You have skills that saved Joe's life tonight." Ellie felt tears freeze on her cheeks. "I never thought of it that way. Maybe it is time you forgave yourself for the people you could not save," Buck said gently, "and started being proud of all the people you have saved." They stood together in the snow, not touching but feeling close. The storm was ending, and stars were starting to show through the clouds. "Buck," Ellie said quietly, "I need to tell you something." "What is it?" "I am starting to care about you," she said, "more than just as a friend. I did not think I could feel this way about anyone after David. But you have been so good to me." Buck's heart pounded. "I care about you too, Ellie. More than I should, probably. You are a lady and I am just a rough cowboy." "You are not just anything," Ellie said. "You are the kindest man I have ever known. You saved my life when you found me at that train station." Buck stepped closer to her. "Are you sure about this? I do not want to rush you or make you feel uncomfortable." Ellie reached up and touched his face. "I am sure." Buck leaned down and kissed her gently. It was Ellie's first kiss since David died. It felt different from what she had with David. This was quieter, deeper, like coming home after a long journey. When they pulled apart, Buck smiled. "I have been wanting to do that for months." "Why did you wait?" Ellie asked. "Because you needed time to heal," Buck said. "And because I wanted to be sure you were staying for the right reasons." "What are the right reasons?" "Because you want to be here," Buck said, "not just because you had nowhere else to go." Ellie looked around at the snowy valley, the warm lights in the ranch buildings, the cattle sleeping peacefully in the fields. This place had become her home. These people had become her family. "I want to be here," she said. "I want to be with you." Buck kissed her again, longer this time. When spring came, they both knew everything would be different. But for now, they had found each other in the middle of a Colorado winter, and that was enough. Spring came to the Double M Ranch in 1953 with warm sunshine and melting snow. The valley turned green, and wildflowers bloomed in the meadows. Buck and Ellie had been together for 5 months now. Their love had grown slowly and carefully, like flowers after a hard winter, but their happiness did not last long. Word about their relationship had spread beyond the ranch. Buck Morrison, one of Colorado's richest men, was living with a woman who was not his wife. In 1953, this was shocking news. The first sign of trouble came when Buck went to the bank in Denver. Mr. Henderson, the bank president, was cold and unfriendly. "Buck, I need to talk to you about your loans," Henderson said. "What about them?" Buck asked. I have never missed a payment. The board is concerned about your recent choices, Henderson said carefully. This woman you are living with. It does not look good for a man in your position. Buck felt his anger rising. My private life is not the bank's business. It is when you owe us $200,000, Henderson said. The board wants you to end this relationship or we might have to call in your loans early. Buck left the bank furious. He had worked with these men for years. Now they wanted to control his personal life. When he got home, he found Ellie in the medical room treating a cowboy's cut hand. She smiled when she saw him, but her smile faded when she saw his angry face. What is wrong? She asked. Buck waited until the cowboy left. Then he told Ellie about his meeting at the bank. Maybe I should leave, Ellie said quietly. No, Buck said firmly. I will not let them bully us. But the pressure was just beginning. A week later, Buck's lawyer called, with more bad news. Buck, your brother Robert is in town, the lawyer said. He wants to meet with you. Buck had not seen his brother in 3 years. Robert lived in Denver and worked as a businessman. He had always been jealous of Buck's success. Robert came to the ranch the next day in an expensive car. He was dressed in a fancy suit and looked around at the ranch like it was beneath him. Hello, Buck, Robert said coldly. Robert, Buck replied. What do you want? I want to talk sense into you, Robert said. This woman you are living with, do you know what people are saying? I do not care what people say. Well, you should care, Robert said. They are saying you have lost your mind, that she is using you for your money. Some people think you need a doctor. Buck's hands clenched into fists. Get off my land. I am your brother, Robert said. I am trying to help you. If you do not end this relationship, I will have to take action. What kind of action? Robert smiled coldly. I will go to court. I will say you are not mentally fit to run this ranch. With enough witnesses, I could have you declared incompetent. Then I would control everything. Buck could not believe what he was hearing. His own brother was threatening him. You would not dare, Buck said. Try me, Robert said. End it with this woman or lose everything. After Robert left, Buck sat on his porch feeling sick. He had built this ranch with his own hands. The thought of losing it to his greedy brother made him want to break something. Ellie came out and sat beside him. She had heard the whole conversation through the window. I will not let you lose your ranch because of me, she said. This is not your fault, Buck said. Robert has always wanted what I have. He is just using you as an excuse. But the attacks on their relationship were coming from all sides now. The next week, 2 women from Denver came to see Ellie. They said they were from the nursing association. Miss Patterson, one of them said, we understand you are practicing nursing without proper supervision. I am helping people who need medical care, Ellie said. The nearest doctor is 60 miles away. That does not matter, the woman said. You are supposed to work in a hospital under a doctor's care. What you are doing here is not proper nursing. These people would die without help, Ellie said. Then they should move to a city where there are real doctors, the woman said. We could take away your nursing license for this. Ellie felt like the world was closing in on her. Why are you really here? The women looked uncomfortable. People are concerned about your living situation. A single woman living on a ranch with a man. It looks improper. Are you going to take away my license? Ellie asked. Not if you return to proper nursing work in a city hospital, the first woman said. We have a position available in California. Good pay. Nice hospital, proper supervision. After the women left, Ellie sat in her medical room and cried. She had found peace and purpose here. She was helping people and healing from her own pain, but everyone wanted to take it away from her. Worse blow came a few days later. Ellie started having nightmares again. The stress of being attacked from all sides brought back her memories of Korea. She would wake up screaming, thinking she heard bombs exploding. One night, Buck found her sitting outside her cabin at 3 a.m. She was shaking and could not stop crying. They are right, she said. I am damaged goods. You deserve better than a broken woman. Do not say that. Buck said, sitting beside her. Look at me, Ellie said. I cannot even sleep through the night. What kind of wife would I be? What kind of mother? Buck had been planning to propose to Ellie. He had already bought a ring. But seeing her pain made him doubt himself. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe he was being selfish by keeping her here. What do you want to do? Buck asked carefully. I do not know, Ellie said. Maybe I should take that job in California, start over somewhere new. Buck felt his heart breaking. Is that what you really want? I want to stop hurting, Ellie said. I want to stop causing problems for people I care about. They sat in silence for a long time. The stars were bright above them and the valley was peaceful, but their world was falling apart. The next morning, Buck made a decision. He called his foreman, Tom Bradley, into his office. Tom, I might have to sell the ranch, Buck said. Tom's face went white. What? Why? Buck explained about the pressure from the bank and his brother's threats. That is crazy, Tom said. You cannot let them win. I will not drag Ellie through a court battle, Buck said, and I will not lose the ranch to Robert. Better to sell it to someone who will take care of it. What about us? Tom asked. What about all the families who work here? Buck had not thought about that. 20 cowboys depended on this ranch for their living. Their families lived here. Their children were born here. I do not know, Buck admitted. That afternoon, Sarah Bradley came to see Ellie. She was Tom's wife, the mother of Jimmy, the boy Ellie had saved from pneumonia. Miss Patterson, Tom told me you might be leaving, Sarah said. I am thinking about it, Ellie said. Please do not go, Sarah said. You saved my son's life. You have helped so many people. We need you here. People in town think I am a bad influence, Ellie said. People in town do not know you, Sarah said. We do. You are the best thing that ever happened to this valley. Sarah left, but her words stayed with Ellie. That evening, Ellie walked around the ranch and thought about everything that had happened. She visited the medical room where she had saved Joe's life. She looked at the cabin where Jimmy Bradley had recovered from pneumonia. She thought about all the cowboys she had helped. She also thought about Buck. He had saved her when she had nowhere to go. He had given her a purpose when she felt lost. He had loved her when she thought she was unlovable. Maybe the people in Denver were right. Maybe their relationship was improper by society's standards. But it had healed both of them. It had made them stronger and better people. That night, Ellie made her decision. She found Buck sitting on his porch staring out at the valley. I am not going to California, she said. Buck looked up at her. Are you sure? I am sure, Ellie said. This is my home. You are my family. I will not let them scare me away. But what about your nightmares? The pressure from everyone? We will face it together, Ellie said. If they want to take us down, they will have to fight for it. Buck stood up and took her in his arms. It might get worse before it gets better. I know, Ellie said, but I'm not running anymore. We are going to stand and fight. As they held each other under the Colorado stars, they both knew the real battle was just beginning, but they also knew they were stronger together than apart. And sometimes that is enough to face anything. The spring of 1954 brought heavy rains to Colorado. For 3 weeks, water poured from the sky day and night. The rivers grew fat and angry. Buck watched the weather with worry. Too much rain could mean flooding, and flooding meant danger for everyone in the valley. On May 15th, Buck woke up to the sound of thunder. But this thunder did not stop. It kept rolling and growing louder. Buck ran outside and saw a wall of brown water rushing down the mountain toward the town of Cedar Creek. Flash. Flood. Buck shouted to his men. Get the trucks. Within minutes, every cowboy on the ranch was racing toward Cedar Creek. Buck drove his pickup truck as fast as he could on the muddy roads. Ellie sat beside him, her medical bag on her lap. You should stay at the ranch, Buck said. This could be dangerous. People will be hurt, Ellie said firmly. They will need a nurse. When they reached Cedar Creek, the sight made Buck's stomach turn. The flood had hit the town like a giant fist. Houses were destroyed, cars were flipped over, trees lay across the main street like fallen soldiers. People were everywhere, crying and calling for help. An old man sat on his porch roof, surrounded by water. A woman held her baby above her head as she waded through the flood. Children cried for their parents. "Set up a medical station in the church," Buck told Ellie. "It is on high ground." Ellie ran toward the small white church while Buck and his men started rescuing people from the flood. They used ropes and boats to pull families from their houses. The water was moving fast and full of debris. In the church, Ellie worked like a machine. People came to her with cuts, broken bones, and near drowning. She cleaned wounds, set bones, and gave medicine. Her hands moved quickly and surely, just like they had in Korea. A young mother brought her 3-year-old son to Ellie. The boy was unconscious and blue around the lips. "He fell in the water," the mother cried. "I pulled him out, but he is not breathing right." Ellie examined the boy carefully. His lungs were full of dirty floodwater. She had seen this before in Korea when soldiers fell in rivers. She knew what to do. Ellie worked on the boy for 20 minutes, clearing water from his lungs and helping him breathe. Finally, the boy opened his eyes and started crying. His mother hugged Ellie and sobbed with relief. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for saving my baby." For 12 hours straight, Ellie treated flood victims. She did not stop to eat or rest. Cut fingers, broken ribs, infected wounds, shock, exhaustion. She handled everything that came through the church doors. Buck came to check on her around midnight. He found her still working, but he could see she was exhausted. "Ellie, you need to rest," he said. "Not yet," she said, bandaging an old woman's cut arm. "There are still people who need help." But as the night went on, something started to change in Ellie. The chaos and suffering around her began to bring back memories from Korea. The crying voices sounded like wounded soldiers. The smell of mud and blood reminded her of the army hospital. When dawn came, Ellie was still working, but Buck could see something was wrong. Her hands were shaking. She kept looking over her shoulder like she expected to see enemy soldiers. "Ellie," Buck said gently, "the worst is over. Most people are safe now." Ellie looked at him with wild eyes. "I can hear the bombs," she whispered. "Do you hear them? They are getting closer." Buck realized that Ellie was having a breakdown. The stress of the flood had brought back all her trauma from the war. In her mind, she was back in Korea, listening for enemy attacks. "There are no bombs," Buck said carefully. "You are in Colorado. You are safe." But Ellie could not hear him. She backed away from Buck like he was a stranger. "I have to get the patients to safety," she said frantically. "The hospital is going to be bombed. We have to move everyone." Ellie started trying to lift a heavy man with a broken leg. She was going to hurt herself and him. "Ellie, stop," Buck said, grabbing her hands. "You are scaring people." "Let me go," Ellie screamed. "People are going to die. I have to save them." The people in the church stared at Ellie in shock. The calm, gentle nurse who had been helping them was now acting like a crazy person. Some people started to whisper that maybe she really was unstable. Buck picked Ellie up and carried her outside. She fought against him, still thinking she was in Korea. "Put me down," she cried. "The wounded soldiers need me." Buck carried her to his truck and drove back to the ranch. All the way home, Ellie talked about Korea. She saw enemy soldiers in the trees. She heard bombs in the thunder. She thought Buck was a North Korean soldier who had captured her. At the ranch, Buck put Ellie in her cabin and stayed with her. For 3 days, she lived in the past. She would not eat. She barely slept. When she did sleep, she had terrible nightmares and woke up screaming. Tom Bradley came to see Buck on the 3rd day. "How is she?" Tom asked. "Bad," Buck said honestly. "She thinks she is still in Korea. She does not even know who I am." "Maybe she needs to go to a hospital," Tom suggested. Buck had been thinking the same thing, but he knew what hospitals did to people with mental problems in 1954. They locked them up and gave them terrible treatments. Some people never came out. "I cannot do that to her," Buck said, but on the 4th day, things got worse. Ellie tried. to leave the ranch in the middle of the night. She said she had to get back to her patients in Korea. When Buck tried to stop her, she attacked him with a kitchen knife. "You are not taking me prisoner," she screamed. Buck managed to get the knife away from her without anyone getting hurt, but he was shaken. The woman he loved was completely lost inside her own mind. The next morning, Buck made a painful decision. He called a doctor in Denver who specialized in mental problems. "She needs to be in a hospital," the doctor said after examining Ellie. "This kind of breakdown requires serious treatment." "What kind of treatment?" Buck asked. "Electric shock therapy," the doctor said. "It is the best treatment we have for severe mental cases." Buck knew about electric shock therapy. They put electricity through a person's brain to try to cure mental illness. Many people came out of it like empty shells. "Is there anything else?" Buck asked. "There are some new treatments being tried in Europe," the doctor said, "but they are expensive and experimental. Insurance would not cover it." "How expensive?" $50,000, maybe more. Buck did not hesitate. "Do it. Send her to Europe. Money is not important." The doctor looked surprised. "Mr. Morrison, that is a lot of money to spend on someone who might never get better." "She will get better," Buck said firmly. "And even if she does not, I will not give up on her." Buck spent the next week making arrangements. He found a special clinic in Switzerland that used new, gentle methods to treat war trauma. The doctors, they believed that mental illness could be healed with understanding and care, not punishment. Ellie was still lost in her memories when Buck told her they were going on a trip. "We are going to a safe place," he said. "Somewhere the war cannot reach you." Ellie looked at him with confusion. For a moment, her real self seemed to come back. "Buck," she whispered. "Is that really you?" "Yes," Buck said, holding her hand. "I am here. I will always be here." "I am so scared," Ellie said. "I cannot tell what is real anymore." "I will help you figure it out," Buck promised. As they prepared to leave for Switzerland, word spread about what had happened. Buck's brother, Robert, heard about Ellie's breakdown and came to the ranch immediately. "This proves what I have been saying," Robert told Buck. "This woman is mentally ill. She is dangerous. You have to commit her to an asylum and forget about her." "Get out," Buck said coldly. "You are throwing away your life for a crazy woman," Robert shouted. "I am fighting for the woman I love," Buck said. "Something you would not understand." But even some of Buck's own men were having doubts. They had seen Ellie threaten Buck with a knife. They wondered if she really was dangerous. "Boss?" Tom Bradley said carefully. "Are you sure about this? Taking her to Europe, spending all that money?" "I am sure," Buck said. "But what if she does not get better?" Buck looked out at the valley he had built with his own hands. "Tom, if the woman you loved was sick, would you give up on her?" Tom thought about his wife, Sarah. "No, I guess I would not." "Then you understand," Buck said. On a gray morning in June, Buck and Ellie left Colorado for Switzerland. As their plane lifted off from Denver, Buck looked down at his ranch growing smaller below them. He was risking everything, his money, his reputation, his future, on the hope that love could heal even the deepest wounds. But as he held Ellie's hand and watched her sleep peacefully for the first time in weeks, Buck knew he was making the right choice. Love was not always easy or safe. Sometimes it required everything you had to give, and Buck was ready to give it all. The clinic in Switzerland sat high in the Alps, surrounded by snow-covered mountains and green meadows. Dr. Hans Mueller ran the facility with a gentle approach that was revolutionary for 1954. Instead of electric shocks and restraints, he used talking therapy and understanding. "Your fiancée has what we call combat fatigue," Dr. Mueller explained to Buck. "Her mind is trying to protect her from memories that are too painful to face." "Can you help her?" Buck asked. "With time and patience, yes," the doctor said. "But she must want to get better, and you must learn how to help her heal." For the first month, Ellie barely spoke to anyone. She spent her days staring out the window at the mountains. Sometimes she thought she was still in Korea. Other times she knew where she was but felt too ashamed to talk. Buck stayed in a small hotel nearby and visited her every day. He would sit beside her bed and talk about the ranch, the cattle, and the cowboys. He told her about the flowers blooming in the valley and how much everyone missed her. "I know you can hear me," Buck said one afternoon. "And I want you to know that I am not going anywhere. Take all the time you need to heal." Slowly, Dr. Miller helped Ellie understand what had happened to her mind. In group sessions with other patients, she learned that many soldiers suffered from the same problems. She was not crazy or weak. She was injured, just like someone with a broken leg. "The memories of war are like infection in a wound," Dr. Muller explained. "If we clean the wound and treat it properly, it can heal. But if we ignore it, the infection spreads." Buck joined some of the therapy sessions. He learned how to recognize when Ellie was having flashbacks. He learned what to say and what not to say. Most importantly, he learned that love alone was not enough to heal trauma. It took professional help and hard work. After 2 months in Switzerland, Ellie began to improve. She started eating regularly and sleeping through the night. She could talk about Korea without falling apart. She began to remember who she was before the war. One evening in August, Buck took Ellie for a walk in the mountains. They climbed to a small chapel that overlooked the valley. The sun was setting and the mountains glowed pink and gold. "Ellie," Buck said, getting down on one knee, "I have something to ask you." He pulled out a simple gold ring with a small diamond. "I bought this before everything went wrong. I have been carrying it around for months, waiting for the right time." Ellie's eyes filled with tears. "Will you marry me?" Buck asked. "Not because you need me, but because you want to build a life with me." Ellie looked at the ring, then at Buck's hopeful face. "Are you sure? I am not the same person I was when we met. I may never be completely normal." "I do not want normal," Buck said. "I want you, all of you. The strong parts and the broken parts, the good days and the bad days." "Yes," Ellie whispered. "Yes, I will marry you." They were married in the small mountain chapel the next week. Dr. Muller performed the ceremony, and a few other patients served as witnesses. It was simple and quiet, but it felt more real than any fancy wedding could have been. "You have both been through fire," Dr. Muller said during the ceremony. "Now you understand that true love is not about perfection. It is about standing together when things are difficult." In September, Buck and Ellie returned to Colorado. The ranch looked exactly the same, but they had both changed. Ellie was stronger and more confident. Buck was more patient and understanding. But their troubles were not over. While they had been in Switzerland, Buck's brother Robert had been busy. He had spread rumors that Buck was mentally ill and being controlled by a crazy woman. He had convinced several business partners to demand their money back. "You owe me $30,000, one partner told Buck. "I want it now, or I am taking you to court." "The contract says I have 5 years to pay," Buck said. "That was before you lost your mind," the man replied. "Everyone knows you spent a fortune on that woman's medical bills. You are not thinking clearly." Similar demands came from other business partners. The bank was also getting nervous about Buck's loans. They had heard he spent $50,000 in Switzerland. "We need to see your financial records," the bank president told Buck. "We want to make sure you can still pay your debts." Buck was angry but not worried. His ranch was profitable and he had money saved. He could prove he was financially stable. But then came the worst news of all. Robert had filed papers in court claiming that Buck was mentally incompetent. He wanted a judge to give him control of the ranch and all of Buck's money. "Your brother says you are suffering from delusions," Buck's lawyer explained. "He claims you spent a fortune on medical treatment for a woman who is still dangerous. He has witnesses who say she threatened you with a knife." "She was sick," Buck said. "She is better now." "Can you prove that?" the lawyer asked. Buck realized this was going to be a real fight. Robert was using Ellie's breakdown against them. He was twisting the truth to make Buck look foolish and Ellie look dangerous. The court case was set for November. Buck hired the best lawyers he could find, but they warned him the case would be difficult. "Juries do not understand mental illness," one lawyer said. They hear that your wife threatened you with a knife and they think she is dangerous. They hear that you spent $50,000 on her treatment, and they think you are being manipulated. Buck and Ellie prepared for the trial carefully. They gathered letters from Dr. Muller explaining Ellie's treatment and recovery. They got statements from the people she had helped during the flood. They documented every dollar Buck had spent and every dollar he had earned. But Robert had been preparing too. He brought witnesses who testified that Buck had always been reckless with money. He found people who said Ellie was still unstable and dangerous. Mr. Morrison spent more money on this woman's medical bills than most people make in 10 years. Robert's lawyer told the jury. He abandoned his business for 6 months to live in Europe with her. This is not the behavior of a rational man. When Ellie testified, Robert's lawyer attacked her harshly. Is it true that you threatened your husband? With a knife, the lawyer asked. I was having a breakdown, Ellie explained. I thought I was back in Korea. I did not know what I was doing. But you did threaten him with a deadly weapon? Yes, but I was not myself. I was. Just answer yes or no. Did you threaten him with a knife? Yes, the lawyer smiled coldly. And, is it true that you have no family, no money, and nowhere else to go if you leave Mr. Morrison? Ellie felt humiliated. That is not why I married him. But you do depend on him for everything? We depend on each other, Ellie said firmly. When Buck testified, he spoke passionately about his love for Ellie and his belief in her recovery. My wife is the strongest person I know, he said. She saved lives during the war. She saved lives during the flood. Yes, she had a breakdown, but she got help and she got better. That is not weakness. That is courage. Mr. Morrison, Robert's lawyer said, do you think it is normal to spend $50,000 on medical treatment for someone you barely knew? I would spend every penny I have to help the woman I love, Buck said. Even if it meant losing your ranch, your business, everything you worked for. Buck looked at Ellie sitting in the courtroom. She was watching him with love and fear in her eyes. Yes, Buck said simply. Love is worth more than money. The trial lasted for 2 weeks. Newspapers covered it like an entertainment story. Millionaire Cowboy fights for crazy wife, one headline read. War nurses break down Sparks' family battle, said another. People took sides. Some thought Buck was a fool being used by a clever woman. Others thought he was a romantic hero fighting for true love. The whole state of Colorado was talking about the case. When the jury went out to decide, Buck and Ellie waited in the courthouse hallway. If they lost, Buck would lose control of his ranch and most of his money. Ellie would be sent to a mental hospital. Whatever happens, Ellie said, I want you to know that loving you has been the best thing in my life. We are not going to lose, Buck said. Truth and love are stronger than lies and greed. After 6 hours, the jury came back. The foreman stood up to read the verdict. We find that James Morrison is mentally competent and capable of managing his own affairs. Buck and Ellie hugged each other as the courtroom erupted in cheers and boos. They had won, but just barely. The vote was 7-5. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded them. Mr. Morrison, what do you say to people who think you are foolish for risking everything for your wife? Buck put his arm around Ellie and smiled. I say that some things are worth fighting for. Love is one of them. As they drove home to the ranch, Buck and Ellie knew their real life together was just beginning. They had been tested by tragedy, pressure, and doubt, but they had survived it all. What do we do now? Ellie asked. Now we build the life we dreamed about, Buck said, and we help other people who are going through what we went through. The mountains of Colorado rose up around them as they headed home to their valley. They had fought for their love and won. Now it was time to make their victory mean something. Buck and Ellie were married again in a proper ceremony at the ranch on a beautiful summer day in 1955. This time 300 people came to celebrate with them. Cowboys, ranchers, townspeople, and even some of the families Ellie had helped. During the flood, I never thought I would see this day, Tom Bradley said as he walked Ellie down the aisle in place of her father. But you two proved that love can overcome anything. The wedding was written about in newspapers across the country. Millionaire Cowboy and War Nurse Find True Love was the headline in the Denver Post. Their story had captured people's hearts because it showed that real love could survive any test. But Buck and Ellie did not want to be famous just for their love story. They wanted to use their experience to help others. Too many soldiers were coming home from Korea with the same problems Ellie had faced. Too many families did not know how to help their loved ones heal. "We should start a treatment center," Ellie suggested one evening as they sat on their porch, "a place where soldiers and their families can get the kind of help we found in Switzerland." Buck loved the idea. "We have the land and the money. You have the medical knowledge. I know how to run a business." They chose a peaceful spot on the Yosai Ranch, near a creek with tall pine trees. Buck hired builders to construct a series of comfortable cabins and a main building for therapy sessions. Ellie worked with doctors to design treatment programs that focused on healing, not punishment. The Morrison Center for Trauma Recovery opened in 1956. It was the first facility in America to treat what doctors were starting to call post-traumatic stress disorder. Ellie served as the head nurse and Buck managed the business side. Their first patient was a young soldier named Tommy, who had fought in Korea. He had not spoken to anyone since coming home 6 months earlier. His wife was desperate for help. "The doctors at the Army hospital said there was nothing wrong with him," she told Ellie. "They said he was just being lazy, but I know my husband. Something terrible happened to him over there." Ellie worked with Tommy for months, using the same gentle methods Dr. Muller had used with her. Slowly, Tommy began to trust her enough to talk about what he had seen in the war. "I watched my best friend step on a mine," Tommy finally told Ellie. "He was blown apart right in front of me. I keep seeing it happen over and over." "Those memories are like infected wounds," Ellie explained. "If we clean them out and treat them properly, they can heal." After a year of treatment, Tommy was able to return to his family and find work. His wife cried with joy when she saw her husband smile for the first time since the war. Word about the Morrison Center spread quickly. Soldiers came from all over the country seeking help. Families drove hundreds of miles to find treatment for their loved ones. The center was always full, but Buck and Ellie never turned anyone away. In 1958, Ellie gave birth to their first child, a daughter they named Sarah after Tom Bradley's wife. 2 years later, they had a son named David, after Ellie's first fiancé, who died in Korea. Their third child, another son, was born in 1963 and named James after Buck. Buck was a wonderful father. He taught his children to ride horses and care for animals. Ellie taught them about medicine and helping others. The children grew up understanding that their family's purpose was to heal people who were hurting. "Why do some people come here so sad?" young Sarah asked her mother one day. "They have been through scary things," Ellie explained. "War hurt their hearts and minds. We helped them feel safe again." As the years passed, the Morrison Center became famous around the world. Doctors came to study their methods. Government officials visited to learn about treating veterans. Medical schools sent students to train under Ellie's supervision. In 1965, Buck was asked to testify before Congress about veteran mental health care. He stood in front of senators and representatives and spoke about what he had learned. "We are sending young men to war, but we are not prepared to help them when they come home," Buck said. "Mental wounds are just as real as physical wounds. They deserve the same care and respect." Ellie testified too, sharing her own experience as a veteran and a healer. "I was one of the lucky ones," she told Congress. "I had someone who loved me enough to fight for my recovery. But thousands of veterans do not have that support. It is our duty as Americans to help them heal." Their testimony helped pass new laws requiring better mental health care for veterans. Military hospitals started using the Morrison Center's methods. The term post-traumatic stress disorder became officially recognized by doctors. Buck and Ellie received many awards and honors. Universities gave them honorary degrees. The president invited them to the White House. But the recognition they valued most came from the thousands of people they had helped. Every Christmas, the Morrison family received hundreds of letters from former patients. Soldiers who had learned to sleep without nightmares, wives who had their husbands back, children who could finally play with their fathers again. "You saved my life," one letter read. I was ready to give up, but you showed me that healing was possible. Now I have been married for 10 years and have 3 beautiful children. Thank you for giving me hope." As their children grew older, they each chose to carry on their parents' work in different ways. Sarah became a doctor and specialized in treating trauma. David became a psychologist and worked with veterans. James took over the business side of the center, expanding it to help even more people. In 1975, the Vietnam War ended, and a new wave of damaged soldiers needed help. The Morrison Center was ready for them. By now, Ellie had trained hundreds of nurses and doctors in her methods. Treatment centers based on the Morrison model opened in cities across America. "Look what we built," Buck said to Ellie one evening in 1980. They were sitting on their porch watching the sunset over the valley. Buck was 62 years old, and Ellie was 56. Their hair was gray, but their love was still strong. "Did not build it alone," Ellie said. "Every person who chose to trust us, every family who refused to give up, every doctor who learned our methods, they all helped build this." Buck took her hand and smiled. "Remember when we met at that train station? You were so broken and scared. And you were so lonely and closed off," Ellie said. "Who would have thought that 2 damaged people could create something so beautiful?" As the years passed, Buck and Ellie became legends in the field of mental health. Medical textbooks included chapters about the Morrison method. Filmmakers wanted to tell their love story, but Buck and Ellie preferred to stay focused on their work. In 1990, at age 72, Buck had a heart attack while working with the cattle. Ellie rushed him to the hospital, but the doctors said his heart was too damaged to repair. He had maybe a few months to live. "I am not ready to leave you," Buck told Ellie as he lay in his hospital bed. "I am not ready to let you go either," Ellie said, tears streaming down her face. Buck lived for 7 more years, much longer than the doctors predicted. Ellie believed it was because he still had work to do. Even from his wheelchair, Buck continued to run the business side of the center. He wrote letters to government officials. He met with families who needed help. "Promise me something," Buck said to Ellie on his last day in 1997. They were in their bedroom at the ranch looking out at the valley they had loved for so long. "Anything," Ellie said. "Promise me you will keep helping people. Do not stop because I am gone." "I promise," Ellie whispered. Buck died peacefully in his sleep that night, holding Ellie's hand. He was 79 years old. Thousands of people came to his funeral. Veterans, doctors, politicians, and ordinary families whose lives had been touched by his kindness. Ellie continued their work for 6 more years. Even at age 75, she still worked with patients every day. She still taught young doctors how to heal trauma with understanding instead of punishment. "Mrs. Morrison, when are you going to retire?" a young nurse asked her. "When people stop needing help," Ellie said with a smile. Ellie died quietly in 2003 at age 79. She was sitting in her garden, reading letters from former patients, when her heart simply stopped. She died as she had lived, surrounded by the love and gratitude of people she had helped. The Morrison Center for Trauma Recovery continued to operate under the leadership of their children and grandchildren. By 2025, the center had helped over 100,000 veterans and their families. The Morrison method was taught in medical schools around the world, but perhaps their greatest legacy was not the buildings or the treatment methods. It was the proof that love could overcome any obstacle. Their story showed that 2 broken people could heal each other and then use their healing to help countless others. In the cemetery where Buck and Ellie were buried together, their gravestone bore a simple message. They loved each other, and through that love, they healed the world. Their story became required reading in medical schools. Documentaries were made about their work. Veterans' hospitals displayed their photographs as inspiration for staff and patients. But for the cowboys who still worked the Double M Ranch, Buck and Ellie were remembered more simply. They were the couple who proved that when 2 people truly love each other, they can face anything the world throws at them.